Greetings, my friends. I'm Viking Brent, and welcome to our live postmortem for Uncharted 4. We are so happy to be here with you tonight, and thank you so much for joining us. I, of course, am joined by my good friend, Mr. Lorin Baumgarten. Lorin?
Brett Adams, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Do me a favor and talk for a minute while I embed the player over on our website so people can find us if they want to.
The people on the website aren't really that important. If they haven't found us already, then fuck them.
There's not much we can do to help them at that point.
I am super excited to be talking to you about this game, my friend. I saw that you did. Did you play the entire game on Outlaw Gamers?
Yes, I did. I played.
You did?
I live streamed. I live streamed the entire game as part of a massive new game smell experience that people. It's not the one that people deserved, but it's the one that they needed.
Your massive smell was well received. I saw you playing. I watched you play some of it. I played through this game. I finished the game before you started, didn't I?
Yeah, I think you did, buddy.
Yeah,
I have to say, I think you did.
So I watched some of your gameplay, and it was quite enjoyable to watch. But I'm really excited to talk to you about it. I only watched the first couple hours because I wanted to keep this conversation here fresh. The postmortem. Brett and I have not spoken about the game, nary a word.
No, we've been too busy prepping the show.
That's right. So I wanted to keep this conversation fresh. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on the game and to take it apart. I know that our listeners, many of whom are joining us now live, have some definite opinions on the game, and so I'm excited to talk about it.
Yep, as am I. So, everybody, just a couple of things before we start off today. Obviously, this is the first sort of like live show that we've done in the way that we're doing it right now. And so if there's any kind of technical problems or things like that, we'll do our best to adjust. If like Lauren's levels are a little bit low, they need to come up, just any of that kind of stuff, just let us know in chat. We'll do our best to adjust for whatever comes. But anyway,
I cannot make my voice sound less Jewish, just to be clear.
And who would want you to? Come on.
Brent has no filter for that.
Who would want you to? So, Lorin, I guess that the logical question here is where do we start? I mean, where do you start? Where do you start with this game?
Well, it's a good question, and we've broken down for the postmortem. We're going to do it very similar to the structure in which we have done previous postmortems. We have broken out the game to talk about things like narrative and themes and art and music and all that stuff. But overall, Brent, I think it would be a good place to start with you put a poll up asking people what was their favorite Uncharted game.
Yep.
And I think we could go over those poll results and talk about our general impressions and sort of where it fits for us in the Uncharted canon. I don't know. What do you think?
That sounds like a great idea. Why don't we go ahead and do that? So, I asked you guys a simple question: which was your favorite Uncharted game? And here's how the results shook out. You had 5 possible answers. Tied for last place, which I guess in theory is only going to give us 4 answers, but tied in last place was the first game, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, as well as Uncharted Golden Abyss, the entry on the Vita. In third place, with 4% of the vote, was Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. Second place went to Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, the game we'll be talking about today. But the number one answer, with a narrow majority, 52%, you selected Uncharted 2, Among Thieves.
So I'm curious, Brent.
Yes.
Have you played all 5 of those games? Did you play Golden Abyss?
I did, yeah.
So in your list, how would your list match that, or how would it shake out?
I don't know. I don't think that I would put. I would definitely be close to this. I think my list would go something like Golden Abyss, Drake's Fortune, Uncharted 3, 4, and then Among Thieves. I think it would go something like that.
Gotcha. So mine would
pretty
be
close.
Certainly Golden Abyss would be at the bottom, but I actually I think I would put Drake's Fortune ahead of 3. I don't necessarily. I don't think if I sort of now looked at them objectively that I would say that Uncharted Drake's Fortune is a better game than Uncharted 3, but I enjoyed it
the
more.
mechanics of one were a little bit more clunky.
Yeah, but I actually enjoyed Drake's Fortune more. At the time that Drake's Fortune came around, the only other really adventure games I felt like that we had of this ilk were Tomb Raiders, and none of them were quite to the quality of Drake's Fortune. And I loved Drake's Fortune when it came around. By the time I got to Uncharted 2 was so good that by the time I got to 3, and I think you alluded to this in your recordings, I wasn't 3 didn't do a ton for me at the time. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it, but it didn't.
It just paled
I,
in comparison with 2.
it did, and so it was. I
Pale
think
might be a strong
objectively, it's a
word,
better
but
game than Uncharted Drake's Fortune. But I enjoyed Drake's Fortune more, and I think it was more meaningful to me, and so I think I would put that above.
it was a bigger
Um,
deal just because of what it represented when it came out
yeah.
and all that.
And then I
So
got to tell you, man, I think I would put Uncharted 4 above Uncharted 2.
um, I there's no way I would do that.
Well, we'll
And
talk about
that will be an
why.
interesting thing to talk about as we go forward today. But yeah, there's absolutely no chance that I would put 4 above 2.
The fair enough. Well, let's talk about it. So,
All right.
let's jump into the story. And
In terms of story, I would say I'd put Uncharted 4 above Uncharted 2. No, I'm kidding.
Really,
But
you're kidding?
well, no, I was really just trying to be an asshole more than anything. But anyway,
You
let's
know what? Don't even. You don't have to try, dude.
let's talk about that. So first off, let's just talk about the narrative. Let's just kind of talk about the story and the themes of this game.
Yeah. So, there's several different stories going on in this game, and this was my favorite part of Uncharted 4 was the story, unquestionably. And we're going to talk about like game mechanics
My least favorite
and
part.
design and that sort of thing. But story was undoubtedly my favorite part of this game, and it was what makes this the best game in this series for me. And I feel like, and tell me your thoughts on this, Brent. But I feel
Yeah,
like there were sort of 4 different stories going on. There's the story of Nate and Sam, his brother, his older brother, as children, and sort of Nate's origin story and their relationship when they were younger.
certainly.
There,
Yeah,
there was the story of Elena and Nate in their sort of normal life. There's the juxtaposition, the sort of story of the push and pull for Nate about his desire to be a treasure hunter versus that normal life.
yeah,
And then the sort of the adventure story, the pirate story in there of Avery and Two and Libertalia, and that story.
yeah. All true.
Um, so there were really multiple stories going on. And oh, by the way, it goes without saying, but this is like it's going to be spoilery from beginning to end. So just in case,
Yes,
just
yes,
in case,
it is.
I want to be very clear about that. And then, I saw some of the folks in the comments already asking the question, like, did you cry at the end of it? Another sort of not its own story, but just a beautiful, beautiful story point, which is the epilogue with Nate and Elena's daughter and that sort of thing. And
Did we give the spoiler warning yet?
yeah, well, we gave it.
Just making
So,
sure.
so there's multiple stories going on, and they were, to me, the most compelling, not only in this franchise, but in some of them in all of gaming. I mean, I was really, really moved by Nathan and Sam as kids, and I want to talk about that in a little more detail.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting, the sort of Nate and Elena's relationship as normal people. Um,
I agree. I mean, that prologue to the game is amazing. In that regard, it just it gives you like a really different perspective and context for Nathan Drake as a character. And to kind of see, we all know him as the adventurer from the games, but to see who he was before that, which we got a little bit of a peek of that in Uncharted 3 during that chapter where he meets Sully. But to see where he was before even that, and then to see kind of where he ends up after all of that, settling down into a normal life, as Chapter 4 is called, with Elena, it was really interesting, and there's parts about that I absolutely love. I mean, like the beginning of the of Chapter 4, where you're diving on that. You don't quite know what it is at first, but it ends up being a tractor trailer that's like gone off a bridge, and you're salvaging the cargo that was on board. I had like so much fun with that. I said, like, I'll play an entire game of this. Like, I don't care. Like, Drake can retire from the fortune hunting. I'll do this. This is fun. Um, but it was really interesting the way that they were able to tie in gameplay and things like that into that section. I mean, the Crash Bandicoot the Crash Bandicoot part of Chapter 4 is fantastic, you know. And so that's the
Yes.
thing. Like, even it should be just like straight up storytelling, but I mean, they could have done it as a cutscene. But I love the way that they infused gameplay into that, with the Nerf gun up in the attic. Where Drake's running around, and of course it's twofold. It's teaching you shooting mechanics and stuff like that. But I really dug all that. But from the story standpoint, I don't know. It was like really cool. It was kind of like how you. It was kind of like how you always hoped that Drake and Elena would end up.
It is absolutely, and so starting with I really do want to dive in a little bit to the Nate and Sam piece when they were kids. The game starts out with it was a great opening where you're on the boat, on the ocean, right? You're with Sam, and it comes back around later in the game in a very sort of Uncharted opening,
Yeah.
kind of over the top, and I loved it. And then suddenly in chapter that was the prologue in chapter one, uh, which is called The Lure of Adventure, which I love the title of that chapter. Is sort of the beginning of the two of them in the orphanage, and it had this just really well done sense of um, cross between of like young teen adventure, like Hardy Boys or Goonies, or like this, not quite Goonies, but this young teen
The, the,
adventure
the Goonies
feel.
part comes later.
The Goonies part does come later
Yeah.
in a big way, in a
Yeah.
big way. I actually, when I was watching the game, was thinking to myself, like, it's our time down here. But the footage that I think you are going to show or are showing about of that chapter where they're running across the roofs, it had this real sort of young teen adventure feel to it, which is a genre that I absolutely love. And they captured it so well in not just in this opening scene, but in the other scenes throughout the game. We'll talk about those as well. Um, but which I think chapter 16 is called the Brothers Drake. It's that one where you take the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
That scene as
Go into the
well. But
mansion.
that's exactly right. But it was just such a wonderful beginning to the game and so unexpected for me. And I have to say, in Uncharted 3, that I replayed the beginning of Uncharted 3 recently, like just a few weeks ago, and still that scene where you're meeting young Nathan Drake and that with the whole Sully thing,
Mm-hmm.
just did not feel natural to me. Something about it just felt off. The first time I played it, this last time I played it, it didn't feel like they got it right.
Okay.
And here it really feels like they got it right. Um,
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I don't think that I felt that put off by what was in 3, but certainly I agree that that what they're doing here with Drake and Sam as kids plays pretty strong.
yeah, and I thought the kid. We'll talk about the actors later, but the kid who
Yeah.
played young Sam and the kids who played young Sam and Nate did a great job. But
Definitely.
um, so I really, really, really liked that piece of the story. And then again, I liked the not just the I loved. I think everybody loved that scene where you're doing the shooting up in the attic, and you come down and you play Crash Bandicoot and you have conversations with your wife. I think everybody was really touched by that scene, but also the way that played out throughout the whole game of their relationship and how Nate lied to her. I like the fact that him lying to her was a thing in the game, and sort of their back and forth. And I really thought it was wonderful. And so I thought those pieces were very meaningful, and they were real true storytelling done in a way that's not frequently done in games. And I really really liked it.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. I mean, as the thing that's kind of interesting in terms of the pacing of that too is just like the game starts off with a big bang, with that scene on the boat at night, where Sam and Drake are on that little, I don't know, dinghy or whatever I don't know what kind of boat that is, but they're on that little boat and they're getting chased by, as we come to find out, shoreline, and then that gigantic cutter sneaks up on them in the dark while it's on fire, which you think would make it easy to see, and yet it gets them. And so it just crashes into the camera, and then cut to black. And so it's really interesting the way the game kind of sets up a certain anticipation for high adventure, high octane action, but then it really goes through a slow kind of build with young Nate and Sam, and then Nate and Elena at home and everything before you. And I guess we're actually kind of skipping something, aren't we? Because I'm trying to remember, where does the stuff in the Panama prison, where does
Well,
that
so
fall?
that comes
That
so it
that, that
opens
comes
up.
right after young Nate and Sam, right?
That's exactly right. So
Yeah.
it opens up with the boat thing, really high action adventure, and I thought it was brilliant. Then you kind of come down to this slower thing, have this totally different vibe, and then
Yeah.
the next chapter it switches. The vibe changes completely again, and you're in this just gorgeously rendered, very cool looking Panamanian jail in chapter two.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was a really cool transition. It was absolutely beautiful.
Have we played as somebody other than Nathan Drake in the single player campaign in any of the other games? Were there any sections where you played as Elena or Sully? I'm struggling to remember.
No, not to my recollection. I don't think so.
I can't recall either. Of course, if we're wrong, somebody in chat can school us on that. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting about the game was the way that you were able to kind of cut away from the main action. And the way that you'll do in films, you'll kind of cut to either what's going on with the bad guys, or you'll cut to a B, like a subplot, a B storyline. And I really dug the way that worked in this game. We're able to cut away and see things going on with Sam. Going back in time to see Sam's escape from the jail at one point, and some of those moments were pretty interesting.
I agree. So the other thing about the story that I really liked, I mean, the sort of push pull of Nate's desire to be a treasure hunter and desire to be normal, that's kind of standard fare and to be expected, and I thought was well done here. But also the story of Avery and Two and Libertalia, to me, this was the most compelling of the four games from the adventure story standpoint.
I agree with that, and I think the reason is because it's so wrapped up in the drama. The story of Avery and Two, and this pirate utopia. It's something that Nate and Sam have been looking for their whole lives. It goes back to when they were kids, and of course it's wrapped up in their relationship. I mean, Nate at one point burns all the bridges that there are to burn with Elena and Sully to go with his brother, and the decision is like you can't point to one thing and say, well, he's doing it because he wants the treasure, or he's doing it, because his dead brother is not dead, and he feels that he owes him. He feels guilty about leaving him behind. It's all those things. And I think that that's a real testament to the writing, is that they're able to ground that pirate adventure, or the motivation to go on it, not just fortune and glory, kid, but the reasons for going on that grand adventure are really rooted in some compelling drama. That's just relationships. Nate, Sam, Nate, Elena, Nate, Sully.
Yep. What's interesting is I thought you were going to say something and it triggered this thought in my head that I never thought of before.
Yeah.
But Avery and a relationship between Avery and Two as brothers, and Sam and Nate as brothers, even though Avery and Two weren't actual brothers, but they were the two sort of leaders of that whole thing and ultimately betrayed each other.
Yeah.
And I thought that's where you were going to go with that, and I had
Well,
never thought about
there's
that.
an interesting. I was thinking about that because there's an interesting parallel to it. Yeah.
So from a story standpoint, I really feel like this is far and away the strongest, from my perspective, the strongest in the series, and one of the strongest games ever made. I was really really compelled. Aussie Legend said in the comments how they really liked the deliberate pace of this game.
Yep.
And we'll talk about pacing, but I think that having those other stories, those more personal stories, brought some of that pacing into the game. And I really liked
Yeah.
not only the back and forth from the different perspectives of those stories, but what they had to say within each of those stories. And I thought it was phenomenal.
I agree. I think that this is the best written of any of the games in the Uncharted series, and it's one of the best written games ever made. It's interesting to compare this to things that no doubt were an influence, but I liken this to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, in the sense that story again was high adventure, but grounded in really relatable personal drama. In that case, the relationship between a father and son, and this is really about Nate and Sam, obviously. But the writing is fantastic. Let's talk about Sam a little bit as a character. Obviously, the fact that the fact that Nathan Drake has a brother, pretty big revelation, and Sam is a huge character in the game. He's a driving force in terms of the story. Kicks things off, and he's also responsible for one of the biggest U-turns in the game when you find out that the story he tells Nate, the reason that he needs to find this treasure, because he's basically been given a death notice by some Panamanian drug lord, is that is all bullshit. He made this up. He's not in fact in debt to some what's the guy's name? Alcazar.
Alcazar. I think it was
Alcazar's
Hector Alcazar.
Yeah, Alcazar's dead, and it's all been bullshit the whole time. It's just that Sam knew he'd never be able to do it without Nate, and he knew he'd never get Nate away from his normal life unless he thought it was a life and death situation. So Sam's like fascinating, a really complex character. There's parts of the game where I really like him and parts where I really hate him.
Yeah, I thought, when they first said Sam, Nate has a brother, um, back when they first sort of revealed that, I was not excited about it at all, skeptical, and I thought it would be terrible. And I heard Troy Baker was doing it, and I thought, okay, whatever. I really, really liked Sam as a character. Have seen people in our own chat. I've seen people on other websites talk about how they didn't like Sam as a character. I
Yeah.
really liked Sam as a character. I thought both as a kid and as an adult, I thought it was very well acted. I really liked the relationship between the two of them. You definitely could tell that Sam was the older brother, but they were different enough. And I thought the relationship was great. I thought Troy Baker did a phenomenal job voice acting.
There's not a weak link in this cast, but to have Troy Baker and Nolan North playing scenes opposite each other is pretty special.
He was fantastic, and I thought Sam was an excellent addition to this game. And by the end of it, I would play a game that was a Sam game. I would love to have a game that has the two of them in it again. I thought he brought a lot to the series, and I thought the character was very well written.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you get to the end of the game, there's that whole moment. Nate and Elena go back to their lives, and Sam and Sully are kind of left, standing on the dock next to the seaplane, I guess. And there's this whole kind of acknowledgement that hey, I we're both still kind of on just the wrong side of the law. Like we're pretty much upstanding people, but we're just standing on this side of that letter of the law. And maybe we should maybe go get into some stuff. And I said, like, right then, I was like this is the next game right here. It's fucking Sully and Sam. The adventure continues with these guys, because I think that Sam stands strong enough as a character, and certainly Sully does. I mean, Sully is easily my favorite character in all these games. I fucking love Victor Sullivan, and basically want nothing more than to become him as I get old in life.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I mean, so I loved that um, they clearly, somebody in our comments wrote DLC bait is obvious, right?
Yeah, baby.
And clear,
I'll
although I
buy
have
it.
to
I don't
say,
give a
I'm very
shit.
so they're doing the first. We'll talk about this. They're doing the first single player DLC, and I'm very curious to see if it's Sully and Sam,
Yeah.
or I think it would be super interesting if it was Cassandra as well, Nate and Elena's daughter. But
Yeah,
um,
I'm down for that also.
yeah, but of course, you're like, okay, so, uh, great, we'll have Sully and Sam games. That's fine. I can do that too. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I'll take
Uh,
it. Whatever they want to give me, I'll take it.
and I certainly didn't get the sense like, they've said this is a last Uncharted. Um, a Thieves End we all assumed meant Nate. A Thief's End meant Nate.
Yeah.
It easily could, be referred to, and this is probably the whole point of the title, is it could easily be referring to Avery as well, and two, and
Yeah, yeah,
all those
definitely.
pirates. And so I would not be the least bit surprised if there was something else in this universe, obviously. Um, but yeah, I loved that scene where the two of them were talking and hanging out. And they would make a perfect series, perfect game series of its own. Yeah, I thought Sam was a good character. I did think we sort of got over the fact that he lied about Alazar a little too quickly. That's a pretty big lie.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it's a huge lie, and I think the way that they kind of approach it, which is smart, is basically, you know, they say, yeah, it's a huge lie that he told, and Nate's no doubt, really pissed about it, but it's not a big enough lie to, leave his brother for dead with Rafe and Nadine. So
Right.
he's got to, he's got to save him. He's got to save him. That part's not in question. And then the rest of it, you just have to imagine that time healed those wounds as it does
Yeah.
all.
So Brent, I want to talk a little bit about pacing and length
Yeah.
of the game.
I
This
I thought it was about perfect
so
personally.
this is where I ran into problems with the game. The game was for me it was about 15 hours long.
Okay.
Was that I don't know if it was about the same for you or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and kind of tally up my playthrough total.
Yeah, so it was about 15 hours long for me. And where I struggle a little bit with the game, I think Naughty Dog has a tendency to do this in all of their games, The Last of Us and all of the previous Uncharted. I feel like they're so like proud of the work that they're doing that they put more in there than they perhaps need to. And the first place in the game where I began to sort of feel like the pacing maybe wasn't working perfectly was in Chapter 8, The Grave of Henry Avery.
Yeah.
It's when you go to Scotland.
Right.
And I feel like there was so many of the chapters were so compelling that there was probably like a couple hours could have been trimmed out in the middle of the sort of generalized adventuring.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want the adventuring and that I want all of these like backstory scenes or whatever, but there were times that I just felt like it wasn't compelling. And the first time you drive the Jeep,
Yeah.
I didn't feel like was
Around
overly.
Madagascar.
Yeah, I mean it was absolutely fucking beautiful, and I wish there
Oh
would have
yeah.
been more Jeep, but there wasn't a lot of Jeep, and that particular level wasn't very compelling. The Scotland level, I felt was just like, oh, Nate, traversing stuff, and we'll talk about mechanics, but just traversing and talking. And one of the things I did, when we're talking about writing, one of the things I did feel this game was had a little bit less of, although it didn't bother me, was humor. I thought it wasn't quite as funny as Uncharted 2. It was
No.
more sentimental, and I really enjoyed
It,
that.
it's
But
it's got its moments, but yeah,
it absolutely
it's
does. But it's that funniness that I think that banter that makes the sort of more repetitive parts a little more palatable.
yeah.
And as there was a little bit less of it, I felt like there was maybe a couple hours of just generalized adventuring and climbing and whatever that could have been left
Well,
out at this point.
I'm gonna take what you're saying into consideration here because I was saying like I kind of felt it was perfect, but in looking back on it, where I really had my worst moments with the game, it was in the Scotland area,
Yeah.
and I started to come out of it once they got to Madagascar, but there I mean starting with the party that they go to, where they're going to steal the
That
other
one's in
statue
Italy,
of
right?
Saint Dismas, yeah, in
Yeah.
Italy. Starting with that
Yep.
section,
Yep.
I had this hurry up and let's get to it kind of thing going,
Yep.
and it affected quite a bit of how I reacted to it. I'll talk about it. It's kind of related to the mechanics, but at first, like I fucking hated the new stealth aspect to the combat
Mm-hmm.
because it took time and I just wanted to go. I was just like, I don't want to fucking sit here and sneak up and like break every neck of every guard in this goddamn Italian villa. It's like I just want to
Yeah.
get into a goddamn. This is an Uncharted game. I want to get into a shootout and get to the next thing. And the game really, really didn't want you to do that. And so, maybe you're right. Maybe what was bugging me there. I mean, mechanics we'll talk about, but maybe it was pacing that was, more sort of wearing thin on me at that point. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that could be a valid point.
one of our listeners, Leg, said in the comments that Scotland felt like a Uncharted 2 level,
Yeah.
and Madagascar felt a lot more Uncharted 4, sort of, Thief's Ending, and that's interesting. I would be curious to think about that. Yeah, I just that was, and you're right. The Italian levels had a little bit of that as well. Um, where I felt that, and yeah, where it was just felt like generalized climbing. And one of the things that was so cool about Uncharted 2, and I didn't put level design in the doc here, but one of the things that was so cool about Uncharted 2 was figuring out that you could climb on things that you didn't think you'd be able to climb on, like signs and air conditioners and stuff. And I didn't feel like I experienced that in Uncharted 4 as much. And so the climbing, well, and again, we'll talk about the mechanics, but it made those levels feel uh, sort of, a bit repetitive or whatever. And so I
Yeah.
too also struggled with the stealth at first, but I think that the stealth actually ended up being something that was really interesting, and I wish they would have maybe even fleshed out a little bit more.
It was interesting in certain areas of the game. Like I thought it worked better in certain places than it did in other.
Yeah.
But again, that as I'm thinking about it now, I've kind of had this epiphany that maybe it was more down to pacing. I want to talk a little bit about the cutscenes. In addition to the story, which
Cutscenes. Were there cutscenes? It's so hard to tell the difference
right.
in Uncharted.
In addition to the story, which we agree that the story, the writing in the game is second to none. The performance capture in this game was like awe-inspiring. I could not. I mean, and even though it does, I mean, it looks like really high-end current gen video game graphics. It's not as though you get into those cutscenes and suddenly it's photorealistic, like live action stuff. It's not that, but the fidelity of the performance capture was so amazing that I just felt so engrossed by what was going on. I mean, every single thing. The little conversation between Nate and Elena on the couch back in chapter 4. All the stuff going down with Sam and Nate while they're on Libertalia. That scene where they come back to the hotel after the big chase scene, and Elena's there, and Nate burns all the bridges. I mean, like the pain in Sully's face when Nate essentially gives him the "you're no good to me anymore" old man speech, and says, if you want to help, go watch, go guard the fort, go watch the woman, go watch Elena. The pain in Sully's face in that scene is it's remarkable. I mean, it's amazing how much of the performance comes through in those cutscenes.
Yeah, there's no question when watching this stuff that I mean it's as compelling to me as any film
Oh yeah, easy,
I've seen. I mean,
easy.
it's absolutely amazing, and we're we have a specific sort of some talk about art and graphics and that sort of thing, but the performance captures it's astounding, and when coupled with good writing and phenomenal acting, I mean it's incredible, and I mean. I was just compelled to come home to see it every day, you know?
Um, I see Aussie Legend in chat talking about the about Quantum Break, and I've not played Quantum Breaks, so I don't have that point of comparison. Although certainly based on what I've seen, it does look good. Um, but it really
What's the comparison there? The
he's talking
performance
about, yeah,
capture?
yeah, like the graphic fidelity and
Yep.
the performance capture and everything. But the game the game is gorgeous all around. I mean, as you've pointed out in the past, now that now that graphics have reached a level where they can really do that kind of wet, uh, specular highlight look, everything gets wetted down now so that they can show that off. And Uncharted, it's certainly true, but I mean, my God, the game is gorgeous. I mean, I can't think of a better showcase for where console hardware is right now than this game.
Oh, absolutely not. And even compared to, so I mean, we'll just jump into this. Even compared to some PC games that I've played. I mean, it is. I'm not saying it's like the crispness and resolution is there relative to PC or whatever, but it is as compelling visually as most games I've ever played. I mean, there were many. I took just ridiculous amounts of pictures, um, and you know there were many times throughout playing the game where I just sort of stopped and the scene. There's what is it? I wrote down some of the chapters here. There's the chapter at sea where you're like in the boats. There's, for those of you that went for the dolphin trophy, it's where you're like boating around those little tiny islands and there's dolphins out there and
Yeah.
you end up going inside of an island, jump out. That was like colossally beautiful when you walk into the hallway of Avery's. Do you remember that like gold hallway in Avery's castle or home?
Oh yeah,
is
totally.
is like astonishingly beautiful. I thought Libertalia was like incredibly rendered. There were just so many moments in the game um, that where I stopped and I was just astounded at the quality of what we were looking at. I mean, it really was just I mean, one of the most beautiful games I've ever played at this point.
Yeah,
When
it really was. I mean, it was just across all the different locations that we explored. I mean, Scotland's not that beautiful, but that's not the game's fault. But I'm kidding,
And
obviously.
there's an island that won't be listening to our show.
That's my people right
I
there.
thought I was
But
amazed at how beautiful um, Madagascar it was where we.
Madagascar was incredible.
I mean, I had seen tons of renders of it um, in PR stuff that had come out before, and it's not like
Yeah.
we haven't played in jungles before. And just the whole time I was there, I was just, I mean, after playing the game for 10 hours or 12 hours, I was like, this game it can't surprise me with its beauty anymore, and it was just astonishing.
Wrong.
I,
Wrong.
I mean, absolutely
It's
astonishing.
Uncharted 4 we're talking about now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
just incredible.
it was
And the art
phenomenal.
direction was top notch.
Peerless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely was. The different environments that we got to see, it brought back some of the, there's some homage to Uncharted 2 with the marketplace and that sort of thing. And
Yep.
the was it chapter, what was it, 13, Marooned, that rainstorm?
Yeah,
You wake
that
up
was
on the
pretty intense.
phenomenally beautiful. The difference in the color palette and design around when you're playing young Sam and Nate. I mean,
Hmm.
just all around the art direction was, as you said, it was peerless. I mean, it was flawless.
It was really interesting also how certain aspects of the game recalled certain things from the last games. I mean, certainly the part in Madagascar, brings to mind some of the things going on in the desert in Uncharted 3, and certainly once you get to Libertalia, that lush green island with the with this sunken city. It's hard to not kind of think back to the first game and looking for El Dorado. Um, those were kind of maybe not, maybe they weren't overtly intentional, but it was interesting how some aspects of this game end up kind of becoming almost a greatest hits collection on all these amazing things that Un- Uncharted has done before, these locales that they visited and so forth.
But I still felt like it was fresh. I mean, I didn't feel like
Totally.
it was just them
No,
redoing.
it doesn't feel repetitive at all,
Yeah,
especially with regards to the design of Libertalia. I mean, on some level, like you play this game and you're like, how has this series existed for as long as it has, and they've never done a fucking pirate treasure hunt, because it seems just such an obvious place to go
sure.
with this series, but it has its own, it really has its own identity as opposed to the stuff in El Dorado or Shambhala, etc.
Hey, Brent, I want to go back for just a second and talk, if I may, about the pacing and the length and that sort of thing,
Sure.
because I think it's maybe the place to do this. And there were a couple listeners who asked, um, if during the postmortem we could do some comparing and contrasting with Rise of the Tomb Raider,
Oh, right.
which you played, right?
Yeah, I played. Well, no. Now, Rise of the Tomb Raider is the second one. I only played like the first, like the reboot Tomb Raider.
Oh, okay. So you
I've
haven't
not
played
played.
Rise of the Tomb
I
Raider.
have not played the second one yet.
So
No.
it's a phenomenal game and better than the first one. And so I do want to talk about a little bit, if we can, in terms of comparing and contrasting, and then talk about specifically A Thief's End and some of the pacing. One of the things that both games really got me with, and the pacing, was they both felt like they were going to end long before they ended.
Right.
And I don't know if you got that. I mean, especially with Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, very, very much so. I thought, oh, the game's about to end, and there was another like 90 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
And I felt a little bit like that in Uncharted also. Like especially once we got to Libertalia, um,
Right.
I was like, oh, the game's probably, and I remember feeling this way about all of the previous Uncharted's as well. Um, uh, that like and I wasn't
Did you feel
thinking.
like they went on too long, or is it just that your sort of expectations got maybe a little bit? Maybe the game messed with your expectations a little bit because, like, just as you think things are winding down, suddenly you hit like the Nazi zombie part of the
Right.
game, and
Well, a little
then
bit
it
of
keeps
both. A
going.
little bit of both. But I think it did go on a little too long. I mean, I think it's like, and I remember specifically, was it Uncharted 1 when you're fighting the army, the big bald dude? I can't remember his name.
That's three, I think.
I want to say Dragorovich or whatever the fuck his name was.
That's three.
No, I don't think it was 3. I can't remember. But,
Well,
um,
if it's the guy that I'm thinking of, it's three.
yeah, I might be thinking of someone different. But no, I think it goes on a little bit too long, and it's made to feel even that much longer because of the little extra bits in the middle that probably didn't need to be there that we talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you get to Libertalia and you think, okay, we're getting close, and then it's just like, oh, one more house, one more pirate, one
Yeah.
more, like, oh,
One
really?
more
Okay,
cave system, one more booby trap,
that's right.
one more
And
cave filled with gunpowder mummies.
I just wanted to bring that up because I think both this and Tomb Raider both suffered greatly from that.
I don't know.
Uh,
I'm of two minds on that. I mean, it's the way that I played in like 2 hour sessions. So like I never kind of like sat there and just felt like, oh god, this is going on too long. Like I was always like, I wish I could play for 3 hours, but I just can't. Um, but I don't know. Like it's hard for me to like say like it's hard for me to fault this game for giving me so much to play. And the thing is, like, I mean, even though you're right in terms of kind of the storytelling, I can agree with you and say, yeah, it feels like it's winding up to this logical stopping point, and then it doesn't. But I found the gameplay in that part of the game so fun that I just can't be too angry
that it
about it.
didn't matter, right? Yeah. So real quick, our the huddled masses have made very clear to me that it was Lazarevich and it was Uncharted 2. Was
Was
is the one that I was thinking.
Lazarevic in Uncharted 2?
Yes, I think so.
Which
And then
which was the
and then
one?
someone called us a fake for not knowing that.
Yeah, well, they're not wrong. That was probably Esteban that did that. We should fire him.
uh,
Uh,
so
so
uh,
anyway, my the one last thing I want to say because I know that we need to move on to mechanics. We can't
yeah,
sit here all night. But one thing I want to say real fast is that, I guess I just want to ask the question. One of the ways that this game really differs from one and two, and I'm kind of struggling to remember with three. Actually, no, they don't do that in three, because it's kind of explained as being under the influence of a hallucinogenic. But this game does not do that whole thing that one and two do, where you get down to like that last little bit of the game and suddenly the supernatural shit, gets unleashed. Obviously, the Nazi zombies in the first
Kingdom
game.
of the Crystal Skull style.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, to a lesser degree, the other Raiders films. I mean, certainly there's supernatural aspects to Lost Ark and Last Crusade,
Of course, yeah.
but this game did not do that. They stuck to just a more realistic kind of approach. And I'm just curious how you felt about that. Did you feel like anything was missing? Did you get to the end and be like, oh, there's not real mummy pirates here? Like,
No, I thought it was perfect. I actually prefer that, and we'll talk about in the mechanics. Um, we'll talk about in the mechanics a little bit related to that sense of like the more realistic or whatever. But no, I appreciate that, and I didn't even notice that as a piece that was missing.
yeah,
Uh,
I agree. I have to say that I mean, people kind of pointed it out as I was playing, but I have to say that I didn't miss it in the least, and I felt like it would probably take away from what the game was really about, which was ultimately it was about human drama, betrayal, uh, you know, priorities, like putting treasure above relationships, and that kind of thing. I mean, all those were sort of in play. Speaking of in play, let's talk about the game mechanics.
oh my god.
This is going to be the one part of the discussion where I can honestly say that the game disappointed me a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it didn't disappoint me because I didn't really have expectations. I expected it to be an Uncharted game, and I thought of all of the Uncharted games, the Uncharted mechanics were at their best in this game. Um, I really like the stealth. As we were talking about this, we're watching footage of that level where you kind of take on multiple levels, multiple guys, and I remember playing that level very well and using the little leaves and stuff to hide. And I really liked the addition of the stealth. I wish we would have been designed to do it more. Um, the swinging rope thing, the grapple or whatever. That didn't seem to impact really a ton. It didn't seem to be much of an addition, in my opinion.
No, it worked okay, but I
Yeah, I mean it
mean,
was fine. It did what it was supposed to do, but I
it
didn't feel
wasn't it
like it.
wasn't a standout.
I didn't feel like it made the game so much more exciting to play.
Right.
And the rest of the mechanics, I felt like were, just slightly better versions of all the Uncharted mechanics. I felt like,
For the most
uh,
for the most part, I agree with that.
but
But then there's the shooting, which I really felt took a step back in this game.
oh
I,
really?
I thought the
Why?
shooting in this was clunky. I thought that Well, the best, I think maybe the best example I can give you is this is okay. This is 2016. This is a game on the PlayStation 4, and yet I'm like behind a crate shooting at some guys. A dude comes running up beside me to grab me, and I'm aiming slower than he's running. Like, like I'm panning to the left to get him, to get him in the crosshairs, but he's running faster than the camera can move. And it's like we like that was fixed last generation. Like, like how is this still a problem? I mean, that's like PlayStation 2 era, clunky trying to play shooters on consoles stuff. And I thought that it was way too easy to get stuck to things when you didn't want to be in cover. You had to get like right up on something to get into cover. Like you couldn't kind of be like running towards it and hit the cover button and get to it. You had to like be right the fuck on it. I thought that there were way too many times where I'm trying to like roll off of like roll off of a ledge or something like that to get away, and I end up going into cover on a barrel or something that's uh, next to me or whatever. It just I did not think that the combat in this game held up as well as it did in 2 and 3. I thought that they were superior with that. It's not that it was. I don't think that it felt as frustrating as the combat in Uncharted 1 got to be at times. But there was definitely some bullet spongy enemies. Like they try to kind of do the thing from 2, where you got guys in heavy armor and that kind of thing. But there was still some moments where it's like, okay, this is 3 headshots now. This guy needs to be dead soon.
That's interesting because I didn't have that experience at all. I mean, I definitely had the Uncharted experience where I started the game, and for a little bit I was like, oh, that's right, this is Uncharted. Like it's not. And I play most of my shooters. I play on the PC, but even so,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
um, it took me some getting used to. But I didn't feel I didn't feel like this was any worse, and I felt like it was, slightly marginally better. But and I didn't have any of the issues you had with rolling and cover. Like that wasn't a problem for me. I don't remember that being
Well,
an issue at all.
I'm perfectly willing. I'm perfectly willing to admit that I've not played a shooter on the console since Metal Gear Solid 5 last fall, and I've been playing the Division on PC, and maybe I'm just expecting too much of it, having played like a third-person cover-based shooter so recently, but with mouse and keyboard, and I'm just expecting too much of what the game is going to offer.
Is going to offer, yeah. So
But
one of the
when I
things,
was playing the game and I was talking about it, I was like, man, this feels like really clunky to me. There were numerous people in chat, and maybe they were placating me, but there were numerous people in chat that voiced similar opinions. They were saying like, yeah, like the gunplay doesn't feel particularly solid.
no, I mean, but I don't disagree with that statement. It just doesn't feel any worse to me.
I got you.
But Uncharted has always had kind of crappy gunplay, and
Yeah,
one of the things. So it's
toss up.
interesting when you look at this game. I'm playing Doom right now on PC,
Right.
which is like all gameplay, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's really good shooter gameplay, and zero story basically. And it's sort of the antithesis of this. But when as I was thinking as we were preparing, for this postmortem, this idea everybody's always everyone knows that Uncharted shooting is mediocre at best. It's okay or whatever. And
Yeah.
I think I was thinking about Tomb Raider, and which was definitely better from a shooting standpoint. Although to be fair, I did play it on the PC, but it was absolutely better. And you have like bows and arrows and different kinds of weapons. But I started thinking about like this as compared to say Indiana Jones or whatever, and what it would look like if you just took the shooting out of this game. In Indiana Jones, there's not, and instead of shooting, you focused on the stealth aspects and a really solid hand-to-hand combat system. Not like Batman, where I don't think that system is the right one, but some version for Uncharted of a really solid Uncharted like hand-to-hand combat system. So it would feel more like, say, an Indiana Jones movie where Indiana Jones isn't shooting up the entire world.
Right.
Um, I don't know. It was just something
Well,
I
the
was
man
sort of
carries a 6 shooter.
right, and he doesn't use it that often.
That
And
says pretty.
usually he drops it.
That's right. Yeah, yes. Usually he drops it, it gets taken away from him, or
That's
something.
exactly right. And so I don't know. I'm just curious, like what an Uncharted game would look like without the shooting. There was significantly less shooting in this game than any of the previous three.
Yes, that I agree with. And just to kind of finish up my rant on the mechanics of this game, although I alluded to this a little bit earlier with regards to the pacing, but the stealth mechanics really came at the wrong moment for me. Where it really frustrated me was in that when you get to Scotland and you're trying to get to the graveyard while Rafe and his crew are over, blowing up the monastery
Right.
looking for the treasure at that point, since they think it's there. But you get into that first like little section. There's kind of like like an excavation going on, and some guys come in, and you've got to you got to take them out. And I was playing through that, and like the game was explaining how the stealth stuff worked, and I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. Like I don't care. Like I want to get to the next thing, so I'm just gonna shoot these assholes because that's gonna be faster. Famous last words. And I found myself so frustrated. And people are talking to me in chat, and they're saying, well, like the stealth is optional. You don't have to stealth them. And I'm like, okay, no, fine. So like I open up on them, and then like all of a sudden, there's like a guy right beside me shooting me in the head, and I'm dead. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I didn't see him. So like I restart again, come back into it. I do the same thing, like I light them up, and then all of a sudden there's like two guys behind me shooting me. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And they're like, oh yeah, if you break stealth, the game like instantly flanks you. I'm like, what? And I managed to, like, at one point you could see in my stream, I basically I trigger it, and then like I go running for like this out of the way spot on the map, and like you pan over, and like the rock you just jumped over coming in, suddenly like three guys come hopping over that same rock. I'm like, where the fuck were you 10 seconds ago? And just like that whole kind of thing where like the game like magically like just they just teleport in. The game just invents bad guys to flank you as a way of punishing you for trying to play like a fucking Uncharted game, which is to say a fucking shootout. That's what this fucking games are about on some level, is getting into a goddamn shootout. And the fact that Uncharted 4 was punishing me for trying to play an Uncharted game made me a little bit crazy.
So I never had that experience, I guess, because I think I did the stealth or whatever. I mean, every
But that's the
every
point, is that the game, it's like do what we say or else.
yeah, no, that seems weird, but
And
I agree with
I
you. That
did not
seems
like
very
it.
weird.
Like
After
I almost stopped playing the game. I almost stopped playing the game after day 3 because I was so angry about it.
I can understand. I can understand why that would be frustrating.
Having said
Um,
that, by the time you get to that big epic fight in the jungle with
the one they showed in all the like gameplay
exactly
videos.
in all those demos, like by the time I got to that, I loved it. Like I really was just like, okay, I'm gonna give up, and I'm just gonna play the game the way it wants me to play it. I'm gonna like put my expectations aside, and I had a really great time with it. And I imagine if I had done that early on, I probably would have been fine with it too. But as I said, I didn't want to do that early on. I wanted
Right,
to
and
get
you
through
got
it.
punished for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
I
that's how
did
it
do it,
felt, and it
and
was
I
very
thought it worked great,
frustrating.
and I loved it. And so I loved like that exact level you're talking about.
Yeah.
I stealthed through like 90% of it, and I absolutely loved it. And so yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I didn't have that experience at all. And one experience like that can fundamentally change sort of how you feel about the game for hours,
It did.
or even permanently.
It did. I mean,
Yep.
it took a lot for me to get over that. I mean, I was playing, like, I was texting with Esteban. He's like, "Oh, you should get back on today and try this and try that." Like, trying to be all helpful after he'd been such a bastard, the day before. Uh, and um, and I just told him, I was like, "Look, I appreciate what you're trying to do." I was like, "But honestly, I don't give a fuck about this game." I was like, "I don't know that I'm going to play it anymore. It's pretty much dead to me." And
So Brett,
I'm glad I didn't stick with that, because it ended up being such a great experience by the time I got to the end.
it is.
But
It's
I was
yeah.
discouraged.
Yeah, oh, that sucks, dude. So there's a couple pieces that discouraged me I want to talk about that I thought were just poor design choices. Number one is I don't know if you caught this, but there seemed to be just a metric truckload of more times that you were sliding down mud chutes and stuff
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of that.
in this game, and to the point that I felt like it was excessive, and not just the amount, but there were multiple times where you had to essentially take a left turn 90-degree angle across the mud chute,
Yeah.
which just physics wise didn't even make sense to me, and I thought that was really really stupid. Um, and then one other thing that really annoyed me in this game, and we were just watching footage of it on the live stream, is the frequency with which they did this stupid mechanic of Pull a crate. Let me look for. I can't get up there. Let me figure out a way to do it. Oh, let me
It's like,
go find a crate and pull it over here for me to jump on.
thank God the pirates built all these crates with casters on the bottom.
And it just seems so like just so ridiculous when it was like, okay, where's the crate? Oh, there's the crate. I have to push it off the ledge and a blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a colossal like waste of time. So that really annoyed me and I thought was way overdone in the game. So those were a couple mechanics that bothered me. The driving, the Jeep, I thought was a lot of fun to drive and gorgeous, and
Yeah.
it just didn't feel like it only felt compelling the second time you had to drive it, like in the chase down the hill, which we had all seen in
I
gameplay
could have done
footage.
with more of that. That was a very very exciting bit of the game. But
I agree,
the
but the
biggest
initial time I didn't think it was like all that interesting or exciting. It was beautiful.
yeah, I mean that was all about the landscape as far as I mean that's the only thing I remember from it. Although I do again from a mechanic standpoint, one of the things that got on my last fucking nerve with the Jeep was the winch. The control to grab the winch cable and go like hook it onto something to pull the Jeep up a
Yeah,
hill.
right, like where you actually walking around the tree and
It's the same button to get in and out of the Jeep. It's just based on whether you're close to the winch or not. It's triangle.
oh, when you're taking it off of the Jeep to begin with.
I cannot fucking tell you how many times I get out of the Jeep, walk around to the front, hit the triangle button, but I'm not standing where the game wants me to be, and so Nate climbs up on the hood and hops back into the driver's seat instead of grabbing the winch cable. I like to break my fucking TV. It made me so I was like, why
That
couldn't you just make this another goddamn button?
that did not happen to me once, multiple
Oh
times
god,
in
it was
the
so
game.
frustrating.
I'm laughing because it's so funny how you could have such a different experience with something like that. And it never happened to me one time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it made you
Just
want to just pull your fucking hair out.
ridiculous. So
That's
anyway,
so
but
funny.
that's my abiding memory of the fucking Jeep. Also, since AI is kind of part of this section, I also would just like to compliment all of the bad guys in the game who carry grenades for having the best fucking aim of any computer controlled enemy with grenades I've ever experienced. I mean, I've been playing the Division, and sometimes those fuckers miss. Not in Uncharted. Not in Uncharted.
That's right. I mean, so one of the other mechanics I just want to touch on briefly, Brent, because it was sort of a pivotal scene in the game is quick time. There's not a ton of quick time in the game, but
Yeah, but a
was a
little bit
big
of
scene.
mash the triangle button.
Well, there's a big scene though. Yes, there's that shit, which I don't even think of that as quick time. I just think of that as stupid button mashing mechanic, but which I guess is what quick time is. But
Yeah.
I don't tend to be. I think quick time is a legitimate mechanic. It's just a different way of like, utilizing the input or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I was thinking about the sword fight with Rafe.
Yeah, that
How
ends
did
the game.
how did you feel about it? I'm curious.
Uh,
I actually
honestly,
enjoyed it. Didn't bother me too much. I
it,
got
it
frustrated once or twice.
it didn't bother me. I mean, I can't remember if I got through it. I can't remember if I died once and had to restart, or if I just, if I just went down and like it kind of I had to sort of, because it wouldn't quite like restart
There were levels
the
of.
level, but it would kind of like it would like knock you back, maybe like sort of two notches from where you
Oh
were.
no, I died a couple of times.
I can't remember if I died or not, but I don't know. I guess that I felt pretty good about it. I mean, as far as I was concerned, you get to that part of the game, you're ready for it to be over. I don't think that I would have cared for some sort of like big elaborate shootout with this with this character. It felt personal, it being a sword fight as opposed to a shootout. It felt personal. It felt like Rafe, due to the fact that obviously he was a fencer. Rafe would actually stand a chance against Drake, in that circumstance. So I think it worked.
Yeah, I did too. Actually,
But that's
I
not to
did.
say I look back on it as like the highlight of the game.
No, not at all. But I thought it was a well done thing, and I certainly when it started out, I was like, are we gonna we're gonna are we? Oh, we're picking. Oh, it's on. Oh, we're picking up the swords now.
Yeah, baby.
And
I
I
mean, it's a
thought they.
pirate game. It's got to end with a fucking sword fight on
Yeah,
a
I
pirate
thought it was
ship, right?
good, man. I know there are people who are like, so many people are so conditioned to just go, quick time is bullshit.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that way. I definitely got
No,
frustrated a couple times because I was struggling. But I enjoyed it.
I like. I mean, to me, to me, it's. I know that it's nothing mechanically like the Batman Arkham fight system, but in terms of the philosophy of it, the idea that you've basically got an attack button and then you've got sort of a block left, block right. I dig that. Like I dig when the game actually kind of like leaves you the responsibility to sort of defend yourself as opposed to just oh, I'll just dodge out of the way.
Right.
I'll just roll away from it or whatever. I think it was tuned pretty
Dude, I'm
well.
telling you, imagine again, not Batman, but imagine like the game instead of all these shootouts had had mixed the stealth mechanic with a well-designed, like sort of more brawler style fist fight where you had to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So your responsibility as Nate the Adventurer is to get around the guys with weapons. Don't let them shoot you. And then when you get to them, you get into a real sort of back and forth fist fight with them. Um, I don't know. I think it would be interesting. But so mechanics, I think the weak part of Uncharted, but were for me sort of in line with what my expectations were. So
Right.
let's talk a
That's a
little bit
fair
about
point.
some of the overall design, Brent.
Sure.
Things like puzzles, achievements, treasures, any Easter eggs, that sort of thing, RPG elements or lack thereof, in terms of upgrading weapons and stuff like that. Um, what did you think of the overall design of the game? Let's start with the puzzles. What did you think of the puzzles in this game?
Uh, I thought that the design of the puzzles and kind of the logic of them was pretty impressive. On the whole, I really enjoyed them, but I did think that they were a little bit on the easy side. I thought they could have been a bit more challenging.
Yeah, and I would say that that's actually a little bit true. Um, with other parts of the design as well. Like it's really frustrating to me the whole, oh, there's the white line. That's where the handhold is when you're platforming.
Yeah.
And I don't recall that there's an option to turn that off. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like some of the design is meant to be easy like that. I thought I would have liked more puzzles. I always want more puzzles, although I don't think the puzzles in the Uncharted series are as good as the puzzles in the new Rise of the Tomb Raider. The challenge tombs I thought were more interesting and challenging than many of the puzzles in Uncharted. But I did like the puzzles in this game, and I preferred them. I didn't have like a major annoying puzzle the way I felt like I did in each of the first three games of the Uncharted series.
I think again, I think one of the reasons that two is the standout is I think that two had the best. I think two had the best puzzles. I think I had the most fun with the puzzles in two. Um, but I just like I said, I mean, I loved. I think my favorite is the puzzle in Madagascar in the in the basement of the tower that Nate and Sully go to, and you're finding the kind of the hidden image in those paintings of the captains, the
Right.
founders,
Yeah. Yep.
and then you're coming back over to that wheel and you're kind of figuring out how to match them up, how to rotate those sigils and get the hash marks to line up, so you can lock them in and proceed. That one was my favorite, I think, from the game. I thought that it was the most challenging, and I thought that it was just the most fun to figure out.
I agree.
The one in the Scotland tomb where you have to like kind of twist the dials to get the shafts of light to
Yep.
rotate and then strike those stones in the
Yep.
door. That one was, I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was clever. It was a neat design and everything. But it was so
Very
easy
easy.
that
Yeah.
it didn't really warrant much.
You're talking about the dials on the like wall, right? On the door.
Yeah.
Right. So there was the other one where you turn the big like rings around the room.
Uh,
Remember
that
that one?
that that one, yeah, that one was cool. I did like
I
that
thought so
one.
too. It turned out to be a little easier than I would have liked.
Agreed. Like that's the thing. It was a cool design. Like the logic of it was cool, but I don't think it was particularly challenging.
Yeah. So I definitely would have liked to have seen more puzzles. I too really liked the one you're referring to. By the way, the one that you were talking about in the basement with all the pirate pictures, did you know that one of those pictures is a direct reference to Monkey Island? The
No, I guess
pirate.
I didn't.
I've never played Monkey Island, but I have since looked up
Well,
some of the
I've
Easter
played
eggs.
Monkey Island, which is why I'm horrified that I didn't catch it.
The pirate that there's one pirate out of all those paintings that has no name, and
Yeah.
he is a representation of who's the main character in Monkey Island? Is it Threepwood or something like that? What's the character? The Monkey Island characters.
I gotta go back and I'm trying to find a picture of this. I'm trying to find like a screenshot of the the thing here.
whatever the guy's name, the main dude in I want to say Guy Threepwood. I don't know why I'm saying that. It's probably totally wrong. I have no idea yeah, he's the character with the monkey sigil. And Guybrush. People, Threepwood. Everybody in chat is telling me Guybrush Threepwood.
Yeah.
He's the pirate in the painting
Right. Yeah. Okay.
that has no name and has a monkey sigil.
I never I did not I did
Yeah,
not even
I
get
mean,
that.
I never would have made the reference because I didn't play Monkey Island, but
I
there's a
did,
couple
but
Monkey Island
a very
references.
long
That's
time
one of
ago.
them. There's a line in the game where he says, "That's the second biggest cistern I've ever seen."
Yeah.
That's a reference to a line out of
Out of
Monkey
Monkey
Island when he
Island.
says, "That's the second biggest skull I've ever seen."
Right.
Apparently, that's a running joke
Yeah.
in the whole
Yeah.
Uncharted series. I didn't know that, but so anyway,
That's cool. That's very cool.
Guybrush Threepwood. That's good to know. So that's the puzzles. Achievements I didn't really pay a ton of attention to, Brent, except I was really excited. I don't know if you knew this achievement was in there, but were you aware of the Scared Stiff achievement?
No.
The Scared Stiff achievement. So you remember, of course, at E3 when they started to demo the gameplay in the marketplace at the beginning of the demo.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it like crashed on him or whatever.
right, it was a controller malfunction. So if you in that scene in the game of Uncharted 4, if when it you're looking down, you say, "I think that's Sam down there," and then you gain control of Nate again.
Right.
If you just stand there for 30 seconds and don't do anything, you get an achievement called Scared Stiff,
Nice.
which is supposed to be a recreation of
Nice.
Nate not moving in the E3 one. So that was a cool one. There was also an achievement that I did get accidentally, where you have to buy an apple from one of the apple vendors,
Yeah.
and then you have to walk over and look at this dude who's got a lemur,
I did that one. I did
and
that
the
one.
lemur comes and grabs the
Yeah.
apple from
It
you.
steals it
Yeah,
from you.
so,
Yeah. I got that
um,
one.
other than that, I haven't really dug into the game in terms of achievements beyond that. So
No, I haven't either, and I don't know. I may get to it at some point. Obviously, I achievement hoard the first game pretty seriously.
yeah, so Easter eggs they are throughout the game. There's a couple Crash Bandicoot ones. I know there's some Monkey Island ones. I've watched a couple videos on some Easter eggs,
Right.
but I haven't really dug too far into those. So one thing that I'm always disappointed with, Brent, in the Uncharted games are the treasures. You know what I'm talking about, the
Yeah.
shiny.
Yeah. The collectibles.
Yeah, I find them to be so not compelling. I never care.
Yeah. I can't say that I do with any great frequency either.
And I really wish that they would do more with. I wish they would do more with that sort with Easter eggs, achievements, and those treasures to make me want to explore in other places. And
Right.
the reward is not compelling in any way.
What do you get for collecting the treasures? I mean, do you
I don't
just
think you get anything. I think you just get an achievement. And
uh,
and the treasures themselves are not compelling. There's no story element to them.
right?
There's just nothing. They don't turn into a puzzle. Like that would be cool if the treasures like you piece together some sort of other puzzle that you had to do to, like I
Yeah.
don't know.
That might
There's
unlock something or
there's a million things they could do with it, and they do
yeah.
nothing with it, and it seems odd.
I did not find the treasures especially compelling. Also, so I agree with you. I agree with you on that point.
Um,
Moving on.
yeah.
What about the single or excuse me? What about the multiplayer? Did you touch the multiplayer at all? I haven't messed with it a bit.
Oh, you haven't.
Haven't touched it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, I did. I actually watched quite a long stream on it before the game came out and was really looking forward to playing it. And I played about 45 minutes of it when the game came out, and then I stopped because I didn't want to ruin anything for the single player. And I went back and played it some more. And I actually really enjoyed it. There's a new system. They have sidekicks in the game now. You can buy one of four sidekicks: a tank, a healer, a sniper, or you can use it to buy weapons, like super powered weapons. And so there's a purchasing system within the game.
Right.
Not that you can use real money to buy stuff, but that you earn money throughout the game and you can use it to buy stuff within the game, sort of like Counter-Strike or something like that.
Okay.
And what I've played so far, I quite enjoyed. I absolutely enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to checking out the multiplayer. I remember I didn't really play it in 3. I played it a little bit.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it in 2.
I played 2 and I played 3. I'm really hoping for some co-op type stuff. I think that would be quite a bit of fun.
It would be, but I really enjoy multiplayer, and I would be totally love to get on and play with some folks from Outlaw Gamer Society and with you, Brent. I really enjoyed it, and I think it has a lot of potential. Again, I haven't gotten into it and really dug deeply.
So let's talk a little bit about what might come next, and I think a good thing to kind of like close on perhaps is the epilogue to the game, because the epilogue is quite interesting. Um, I as satisfying as the game was from a story standpoint, the epilogue was even more so. I found myself, admittedly, I'm a sucker for this kind of thing in general. Good drama just does it for me in general. But the fact that the good drama in this case was all to do with Nate and Elena's daughter was pretty special, and I really found myself enamored of that. And the idea that what if they continue this game with with the daughter, like what if she grows up one day and has her own adventures, whatever. I mean, they don't really other than just kind of introducing the character, they don't really set that up at all. But I'm just kind of curious. I mean, we joked earlier about like, oh, they should do like Sam and Sully, and some people say that they could do something with the daughter. But where do you think that it goes if they're going to do DLC or something like that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they obviously they've said they will be doing, and I can't wait for this, and I will absolutely be buying it. The first piece of single player DLC.
Yeah,
Um, for the Uncharted series, and my guess is it's going to be a Sully Sam thing,
right.
but I think it would work awesomely as a Cassandra thing, and I would love to Cassie, and I would love to see. Uh, I would love to see them do a game with Cassie. I would love to see them continue this series with Cassie. I think it would be fucking brilliant to
That
do
would
like
suit
a.
that would suit me just fine.
I just think it would be fucking amazing, and you could have Nate and Elena show up in the game somewhere, or I just think it would be awesome. The epilogue to me was, it was just so powerful and moving and so awesome and completely unexpected for me.
Yeah.
I did not. I never guessed it from a million miles away, and I absolutely. I absolutely love that scene. It's one of my favorites of all time in gaming, and it comes back to, I think one of the things you and I love the most about Red Dead, Brent, was that when uh, Marston's son is the character you're playing, and the
Yeah.
the relationship between the two, and there's something very powerful and palpable there, and I think it was really incredible. So,
I agree.
so
I think that again, going back to we've talked about sort of the themes of the game, relationships, family, all of these things that are strung throughout Uncharted 4. That is, in a sense, it's the only place that it can end. You begin very early in the game seeing where Nathan Drake started in life, and I found myself um, really engaged by seeing how Drake's child is about the same age in her own life, and how different her life is, and how Drake has maybe the most courageous and amazing thing that Drake has done in all his adventures is to be a good dad, and that's something that obviously has a lot of import for me these days, something that I strive for. But that scene really connected with me powerfully, just because it's. I guess I can see myself in it more so than anything else that Nathan Drake does.
yeah, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I also love separately the whole like going through the belongings
Oh yeah, no, that
uh,
was great fun.
from the last few games, and the picture, looking at the pictures. And by the way, I did want to mention, I loved the part with Nate and Sam where they took the picture of themselves in the mansion,
Right.
and I had switched out a couple hats, and the picture has whatever hat you were wearing and whatever, you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
I love that whole thing, and then bringing it back around while she's looking through the pictures and seeing them on their wedding, and
Yeah.
it was absolutely fantastic.
It felt like they really the one thing that you can say about the game, I think, is that they really gave us, the fans, nice closure in this game. Like, you didn't get to the end of this game and feel like, you'd been robbed. Like, you really felt like they'd closed the book, but it was a wholly worthwhile journey to have gone on.
Absolutely, and I think that is perhaps its most brilliant aspect is the way in which they did it was different from the previous versions. It was better, in my opinion, from a storytelling standpoint, and you're right, they brought closure, Brent, in a way that was satisfying, which is, and whether or not it's actually closure remains to be seen. I would not be
Sure.
surprised if there was another game in the universe at least. And frankly, I wouldn't even be that surprised if they did another Nathan Drake in 5 or 7 years or something.
Yeah.
Um, but the closure felt very satisfying, which is very difficult to do, and it's few and far between that even some of the greatest shows of our respective generations bring good, solid closure. And it was a remarkable ending to the game.
I agree. I felt like I kind of got to the end and felt like, well, that was worth everything. That was worth the ride. It left me in a really great place emotionally, and I have to admit that I was playing on the stream and doing my best to just not crack up and start bubbling, because I was really really moved by kind of where the game got in those final moments, and that sort of that statement, subtle though it may be, that while these games on the surface have been all about fortune and glory and treasure hunting and all that, but that the really really important things are the people close to us. And
Absolutely.
that just having gone through this whole game series with all the high adventure and the shooting and the platforming and the puzzle solving and all that, for it to wrap up with that fundamental truth is a very very worthwhile thing for what could easily be construed as just sort of cornball entertainment.
Yeah, it was everything you described and more, in my opinion. It was that touching.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, Brent, a couple more things I want to say.
Okay.
Number one, I initially ordered the special edition of this that came with the steelbook case. And Amazon has 20% off for Prime members on games. I didn't even know that, and that 20% applied to both the collectors and the special and all those editions.
Okay.
I saw somebody had posted a picture of the statue that came with the collector's edition on our website, and I immediately began to look for how to get a hold of that. And what I ended up doing actually was returning the special edition. Unbelievably, they took it back.
Really?
And bought after I'd opened it, and bought the collector's edition that had the statue. And if anybody's interested, it's if not the best, one of the best gaming statues I've received with the collector's edition.
And Lauren would know. Lauren likes his gaming statues.
I have a few. So if you're interested in it, I highly recommend, when you get it through Amazon, the collector's edition with the statue is only $90. And it's worth it, absolutely. So I'll just throw that out there. And the steel case. I don't know if you've seen it, Brent, but you should look it up. The steel case is awesome. It looks like an Indiana Jones movie poster. The steel case itself is awesome. So I just wanted to share that with people. And then I had to ask you, this footage we're watching today, Brent, while we're doing the live broadcast,
Yeah.
is it your footage?
No, because my footage, because I was sharing through the PlayStation,
Right.
and so the footage that I've got on my YouTube channel, like the screen is relatively small and it's got the chat room off to the right and my picture above it. So no, this comes from Ghost Robo and his YouTube channel.
Okay, because there's some really bad gameplay going on here.
Yeah, blame it on. No, listen, not that mine was substantially better. I mean, I'd love to lie to you and say like, oh, I was way better than this guy, but probably not.
Right. All right, Brent. Well, I think unless you have anything else to add on the postmortem, I think we've reached the end of the postmortem.
It looks that way.
Yes, it was a good time. I really, really, really loved this game. I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it as well. Now I can go back and watch your playthrough.
Well,
right?
I mean, go ahead and do it. I'm just telling you not to expect very much. I mean, expect a guy who says, I can probably make that jump, and then finds out he's wrong.
And then doesn't make it.
Yeah.
Even just talking this through and even watching watching the gameplay video as we were talking, I'm reminded of how great the game was. So, as usual, we want to thank all of you guys for being here with us. We always are looking for your feedback. So if you're listening to this recorded, please be sure and add your thoughts in our comments. As usual, he is Brent Adams. I am Lauren Baumgarten. We will be back for E3. Remember, you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing.